Hello and welcome to live post-match reaction to the Blues versus the Reds in Super Rugby 2018. And wow, what a cracker it, wasn't really, let's be honest. It was a bit of a silly game. As far as I've got my door closed, no, it's cold in here. Because if you're in New Zealand, it is absolutely freezing, to be honest with you. And you'll have noticed that watching the game, all the smoke and the steam raising off, smoke raising off the players. But anyway, from a man who probably is in a bit of warmer climes over in Sydney. I don't know how cold it is in Sydney. What's the weather like, Hugh?
It's been pretty cold actually the last few weeks. I think we're sitting on about 11 or 12 at the moment, so double digits. Decidedly balmy compared to Auckland, I'm sure.
Double digits. Well, I'm down in New Plymouth and we have snow on the mountain. So, double digits sounds absolutely fantastic, I must admit. Geez, went out and bought myself some nice fingerless gloves just to try and keep my fingers warm. So, there we go. Mav says, hurry up. Good morning from England. Well, hey, Mav, we're now here. Sorry we're running maybe a little bit late, or not even maybe. Yes, we are running a bit late. So, the game finished 39-16, but this wasn't really a clear dominant Blues performance, was it? It was all a bit messy and a bit farcical as a whole. Not a great exhibition of rugby.
No, not a great spectacle. Look, I guess if you're a Blues fan, you're probably feeling reasonably happy, at least with the result and getting that win at home. If you're a Reds fan in particular, and possibly a rugby fan in general, you're probably left shaking your head at a few things that happened in this game.
And I'll admit, I was had a couple of post-work beers, and so I arrived late and missed the first penalty. But the Reds took an early lead, 3-0. Did you see it? Because I must say, I missed it.
Yep, so straight from the kickoff, it went straight to DrivingMaul, who then knocked it on, leading to the first of what I believe were 9 scrum penalties for the Reds, and then Lance duly slotted the 3 points.
Well, sorry if you can hear that.
I can hear that.
There we go. Right, now I've got rid of that because somehow I was managed to play the replay as well. Oops, wrong window open. Sorry, guys. So, yeah, I know this. The Blues basically struggled at scrum time all game, didn't they? Looking at the stats, it suggests they won 4 out of 5 scrums, the Blues, but that's there was at least 3 penalties that led to in the first half. Never mind the second half that they gave in. So, yeah, this suggestion that they were a mess at scrum time tonight, weren't they?
They were. However, as an Australian rugby fan, I'd be quick to compliment the Reds front row on their clear dominance at scrum time, and it's probably evident as well how far Taniela Tupou has come with his scrummaging this season, and how bright the future looks for Australian rugby at scrum time.
No, absolutely, and they I guess, yeah, when you say that they're a mess, that's because they were dominated by the Reds, really, and yeah, all kudos to the Reds there. That was the one the one battle they kind of they won. I mean, that's yeah,
they did draw the yellow card battle there, Paul. Come on, mate.
No,
to all.
I was going to say, yeah, the 13 minutes on 30 minutes, it was 3-6, 3 scrum penalties against the Blues. Already at that point, all 3 penalties they'd given up were all at the scrum. Which I say they were messy there, and the Reds on the upper hand. Then we got a good example of I put a poll out on Twitter with this Blues lineup saying, how many centres do you see in this Blues lineup? I see lots of wingers and fullbacks, because from 12 onwards, from 11 outwards, all the players were basically wingers or fullbacks. There were no centres in this team at all, and we saw that with some of Rico's passing. Some wonderful loopy passes to Nanai, seeing there's a guy free, I'll do a long miss pass. Yes, you can do a long miss pass, but it has to be flat. You can't be doing long miss passes with a big loop because he just gets closed down and bashed over, really.
Yep, what we call in Australia a harbour bridge pass, Paul, and we saw several of them from Rico tonight. Having said that, that was probably the only blight on his game. I mean, apart from that, he was quite spectacular at times.
He was good, and eventually Nanai managed to. He got a harbour bridge pass, but he still managed to show some footwork and go over for a try on 20 minutes. Conversions by both sides were, well, totally missing in this game. The Blues made 1 and the Reds made none out of 7 tries. So one successful kick, but from 7 attempts by both teams. The kicking tonight was woeful from the tee.
Kicking from general play wasn't great either, actually.
No, that's true. The commentators tried to make some excuses along the lines of, there's a the ball might be a bit deflated, or hey, it's cold, therefore it's heavy air, so therefore the ball you have to kick it harder. And give me a break. Yes, it's cold. It's not nice to be out there, but these guys are paid to train and play in these conditions. You can't say it was dry, it wasn't wet and slippy. Yes, it's cold. Deal with it.
Exactly right.
So, and then we headed into the fun yellow card bit. So, 22 minutes. The Reds winger takes a guy beyond the horizontal, or takes Duffy beyond the horizontal, brings him down. Duffy puts his arm out to make sure he doesn't bash his head. Pretty clear yellow, I think.
I think under the current laws and the current interpretations and directives that, yes, it was a yellow card. I don't necessarily agree with those laws and interpretations at the moment. But where we're sitting currently, I'd have to agree.
And I've had a go at commentators for bringing the game into disrepute, and I'm going to have a go at them here again. So a couple of things. I thought June was past, which is a clear reference to, the All Blacks get the better. I mean, these are the New Zealand commentators. The All Blacks get the rub of the green and therefore get all the cards their way. So we had that comment first, and then we had another one of that the referee was correct by the letter of the law. Well, that's the idea of what referee's supposed to do. Upon which we have, I think it was Mertens come back and go. I'd rather be dyslexic. It's like, what? Look, if you want to say you don't agree with the law, just say what you don't agree with the law. Using some sort of weird, okay, I'm dyslexic, I've had a few beers, perhaps I'm being a bit sensitive, but I thought that bad choice of words, and silly by Mertz there.
From what I've seen of Andrew Mertens, and I don't dislike him as a media personality, and sure, he was a great player, but it seems to me that he's no stranger to making interesting or controversial comments. Yeah,
if you don't agree with the laws, then just say so. But to do something along those sort of lines is just a bit of a joke. The next yellow card I think was a little bit more questionable. Going down in I guess what would be called a chop tackle, but we've got the player on his right shoulder catching the opposition's right leg, which means his left arm has got nothing to hold on to because it's all air, and his right arm doesn't wrap around, so therefore it's considered a no arms tackle or dangerous tackle. Now, are you supposed to put your head between the guy's legs so you can get both arms round? Or what are you supposed to do? It's difficult there for him to wrap his arms. Both arms were kind of out in that kind of direction. Perhaps a little bit harsh there for the yellow card.
I thought this one was a little harsh, and thought that perhaps another contributing factor was the fact that both players were in such close proximity when the ball was passed, and Tupou just didn't it seemed to me that perhaps he didn't really have time to get his arms around.
Yeah. It was a quick. So we suddenly had the Reds down 2 players to 13 players, already 8-6 points, 8-6 down on the scoreboard, and it's like, right, if the Blues can't win a game from here, I think I'll put a tweet out. If the Blues can't win a game from here, then they've got some bigger problems we thought they already had, and we know they've got big problems. So at that point the game's given to them on a plate, really. Let's be honest. And during the yellow card, they knock over a penalty and score 2 tries. Obviously, not knocking over the conversions because conversions were not to be kicked tonight. Quick tap penalty, and then Rico goes all the way, definitely attacking down the left wing where the Reds were short, and then again attacking down the left wing where they were short, and I guess they get over again. So to give the Blues some credit here, they attacked the right part of the pitch as to where the players had been yellow carded from.
They did, absolutely, and it was a great run by Rico. I thought he turned Karevi inside out, and then stepped inside a pretty feeble attempt by Lance, I thought, also to score that one. And it was good to see Moulds barge over there for that try too, considering that he was only a late inclusion after Parsons was ruled out.
Yeah, and at this point, I think it was something. The game ended with 9 clean breaks for the Blues and only 2 for the Reds. In that first half, I don't think the Reds managed 1 clean break. Now, it doesn't help that they spent sort of 10 minutes with 2 men off the pitch, but even so, they weren't they weren't managing to break down the Blues. The Blues at that point, they hadn't had to make that many tackles, but they were making all of them. So whereas the Reds were missing a couple of tackles, and that was a bit of a difference between these two sides. Was that tackling side?
Yeah. The stats I saw at halftime were that the Blues did not miss a tackle in the first half, while the Reds missed 13. But the real interesting stat I thought was that at halftime, the run meters Blues 341, Reds 70.
Yeah, and whilst the Reds did better in that second half because it finished with 606 to the Blues and 169 to the Reds. The Blues dominated that pretty much the whole game through, and also the possession as well. I mean, possession and territory there. It was 60 odd in both for the Blues and 30 odd for both for Queensland in that first half. In the second half, the Blues were just over 50, and the Queensland in the high 40s. So they did better in that second half, but still the Blues had the upper hand on both of those. And at half time, the Reds had a chance to bash away at the Blues line, but the Blues managed to hold out. So some pretty good defence just there, just to hold them out at the end, because the Reds really need to score just before half time to get a score at least after they'd had that yellow card, I think.
They really did. When Mould scored that try, it looked like that was just a case of the floodgates opening and all over Red Rover. And
let's be honest, it was scoreboard pressure because there were opportunities for the Reds to kick points. They probably would have done if it had been closer, but they thought they had to get sevens. And with over half the game to go, I think they could have got they should have got something on the board at that point rather than necessarily trying to definitely go for that 7. Perhaps a bit old school there that scoreboard ticking over is what you should be doing.
Yeah, probably a tough call as well, considering, as we said, how far behind they were and how many mistakes they were making and how dominant the Blues were in most facets apart from scrums.
Yep. And there was also a bit of a difference in style of play. I mean, in the end, kicks from hand, 16 from the Blues, 29 from the Reds. And I guess part of that is the fact that the Reds were in their own half quite a lot. But the Reds were definitely happy to put boot to ball. And they were either kicking a bit too long and not contesting it, or too short and not really getting the distance. But they really needed to have a much better kick chase, much faster kick chase, because they were just letting the Blues run it back relatively easily.
Yeah, there was plenty of ball for the back three for the Blues there, and I was quite disappointed actually with Stewart and the Reds kicking game in particular. It's an area where quite a few Australian teams are struggling at the moment, and especially Australian number 10s.
And we said they had the plenty of opportunities for those back three. Duffy 51 metres, Nanai 29, Clark 61. That's not particularly high metres for running back, considering the opportunities they had. Rico obviously got 100 metres. As you say, he had some very good facets in that first half. And Akira Iwani on 169 metres, which is pretty crazy. But you'd expect the back three to have got a few more out of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Second half, the Blues did what they needed to do. Bit of Reds confusion over who was going to take the bomb, which was which was really poor. Fine, it was measured between the two players, but knock on, and you know if you catch a knock on, it's offside and it's a penalty. It was just blatant. There was no hiding it. Gave the Blues an easy 3, and to come out when you're already 21-6 up, to be able to add an easy 3 straight after the break, really just put the game away at that point. To be honest,
a case of instinct taking over, I guess, and the ball was there and he caught it.
Yeah, it does. But you'd hope. Well, you think these players would have learned that if you're in front of the guy and he knocks it on at a kick, leave it. Just don't catch it. The Blues then were finding some nice spaces around the rucks, just pick and goes, which showed that the Reds hadn't got their post defence sorted out and needed to slow the ball down a bit. But they got but the Blues knocked it on, and again used their scrum to good effect. But the high tackle. Now the commentators were saying high tackles, surely if you're protecting the head, that's a yellow card. And I'm like, come on, the guy just tapped him on his head. Sure, he tackled him from behind, but it wasn't like he took his neck off or anything. I was comfortable with the penalty there. I think the commentators were looking for arguments rather than really finding one there.
Yeah, and I think there were plenty of people actually that I saw on social media who were quick to jump on that as an example of inconsistency. But to be honest, I thought that Kano's clear out on Higginbotham in the first half warranted closer inspection rather than that high shot.
Yeah, I'm comfortable. Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. Yeah, the guy he went too high, but it was from behind, and it wasn't smacking, wasn't taking the head off. So I was comfortable with it just being a penalty. Kano's, did he rap or not? Questionable, but I think that's the kind of clean out you see in quite a lot of rucks that has been allowed nowadays, which is perhaps wrong. But this whole idea of binding nowadays seems to be questionable at ruck time, especially if you're on the attacking side, which he was at that point. Perifetta managed to bash over after that, and had a bit of a bloody nose and tears, but was allowed to take the penalty. Allowed to take the conversion. I'd have had him off for a HIA personally at that point. If you got a guy blinking, tears coming out of his nose, tears coming out of his eyes, and a bloody nose, I'd have thought that would be a good indication that he's taken a head knock personally. But there you go.
Still kicked the goal, didn't he?
He still kicked the goal, and then went off for apparently a blood bin rather than the HIA. An interesting stat the commentators came out with at that point was that 9 of the 23 were remaining from last year's contest between these two sides, which I agree with them is a high turnover. 14 brand new players from last year. It shows you the kind of turnover and the number of injuries that Tanner's had to deal with, and maybe he should be given a bit of slack for that, even though the Blues are having perhaps one of their worst seasons ever this season.
It shows you where both sides are really too in in terms of their rebuilding cycles and where they sit on the table, I think.
Yep. With the Reds, I mean, when you're losing players like Quade Cooper, etc., you're bringing in brand new tens. You've got a head coach who's only had one NRC season as a head coach experience. Yeah, the Reds clearly, this was always going to be a growing season or a season for them. I was never expected them to go anywhere near the playoffs. However, with the Blues, sure, you've got Perifetta and Gatland are new tens in there, but this is the third season I think that Tanner's had with the side, so you'd think he'd be getting something going by now, but clearly, injuries have held him back. After that, under advantage, the Reds had several advantages as they were bashing away at the Blues, and eventually got over. But yeah, the Blues didn't help the New Zealand stereotype of please try and give away a penalty and 3 points when in your own 22, rather than actually letting the players get over. A bit cynical play, let's be honest.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And talking about that try in particular, it was a great run by Caleb Timmer, who, when he came on, had an immediate impact, actually, both positive and negative. But the player who really impressed me in that move, and actually when he came on, I thought he was probably their best player for the Reds, was the replacement halfback, Tate McDermott. He threw a beautiful cutout pass from the base of the ruck to Lukan Tui, who then passed it on, and the try was scored. I thought it was excellent. He
also had a couple of snipes as well, and
the
second one in particular, if Akira Ioane hadn't grabbed him and thrown him back, if he had any weight to his body, that he would have crashed over at that point. But being the slight guy he is, he got thrown back. So yeah, no, you're right. He definitely was brought on a sense of urgency and a bit of energy for the Reds in that position, which they didn't have before that. The Blues lost a player to a yellow card then, and 5 minutes later lost their prop for eventual scrum penalties, because there'd been way too many of them, and I think even the New Zealand commentators were like, how many more scrum penalties before they lose a player? So yes, when you've got your own countrymen asking the question, you've got to say perhaps they should have lost a player earlier, and that was really the Reds' opportunity. I guess the difference between the two couples of red cards is that the Blues lost two forwards, the Reds lost a forward and a back, and if we look where those tries came, the tries came from where the back was missing, whereas the Reds couldn't take advantage around the scrum and up the middle with those two forwards missing.
Yeah, and the way the game is developing at the moment, and the way that the card system is being utilised, it just shows how important it is for teams to have a clear strategy, depending on whether it's the opposition who's been given the card, whether you've been given the card, what position the cards have been given in, and so on.
Yep, absolutely. And the Reds did get themselves a line-out maul try. But that wasn't which closed it up. But the missed conversion meant that it was still 15 points, so 3 scores difference, and at the time was running out. The Reds got over eager, tackled a player off the ball, gave up a penalty, and yeah, basically they just ran out of time.
Yeah, and I think at that stage, even having to score twice was going to be a bridge too far.
And then Clark went over off the back of a quick scrum, and it had to be a quick scrum because the Blues scrum had been going backwards all night. And Kano showed us why he has only taken one kick in his entire life as a Blues player.
Yeah, the big shank.
Big shank. Yeah, so Kano got, obviously, this is Kano's final game for the Blues after 137 games, I think it is, or something like that, 136. So making him equal second with Woodcock as to the number of Blues caps ever, both behind Kevin Mealamu. And so he got to take the final conversion as time had run out. And yeah, he totally shanked it. It was a low kick to the left, nowhere near the post. One of the assistant umps apparently put his flag in the air, and they were trying to. The commentators were trying to get it given just purely because but yeah, it was never to be given. Some interesting line-out stats actually. Only 7 line-outs for the Blues, but 16 line-outs for the Reds, and that's that's a pretty crazy number. And I mean, the Blues did give up 15 penalties to the Reds 10, but they weren't always clean lineouts, were they? The Reds. It wasn't clean ball for them from the lineup for quite a lot of the game.
No, I didn't think that the Reds had a lot of clean ball. Full stop. Actually, I thought that the Blues were far better at the breakdown, and they contested the ball far better at the breakdown. They were more effective in slowing down the Reds' ball from the breakdown. The Reds were probably their own worst enemy in terms of turnovers and unforced errors as well. So it's hard to win a game when you don't have good quality ball.
Yeah, 16 turnovers for the Blues, 20 for the Reds, which shows what you're talking about there. And one of the things that was talked about was quite a lot of balls that hit the ground and went backwards as well. There wasn't. It was a cold night. There were cold hands, and the players weren't. This wasn't. You say it wasn't a great display of rugby. Players had a good game though. We've talked about both. Well, we've mentioned both the Iwanis and McDermott. Anyone else who stood out and had a good game for you?
I actually thought that Clark was quite good for the Blues and that he deserved his try at the end. Hodgman made some good runs. Gibson was okay. Interested on your thoughts on the Blues number 10?
Perifetta.
Yeah.
Perifetta's a player that, given time and space, he likes to run with the ball, and still not convinced about his ability to run a game or as a sort of general. I think Terry Black, when he comes back next season, obviously he's been injured all this season, could be the man that the Blues turn to. Perifetta's still a young guy. I expect to see quite a bit of him down in Taranaki during the Mitre 10 Cup, which will be good for him to get another season of that under his belt. So, a long way to go. I don't think it helped having no centres outside him. We've already talked about the fact that, Akira Iwani's passing was not the best by any stretch of the imagination, and no one else seemed to really pass it at all. And looking at the stats, there's a couple of passes attempted by the guys, but when you've got a bunch of basic wingers and fullbacks outside you, it's going to be difficult, especially when you're told not to kick the ball. But I think when we look at the kicking stats from hand, it was clearly that they wanted to keep the ball in hand, but they didn't have the right backs to do that. I think it's muddled game plan from the Blues, which I don't think helped Perifetta either.
So, because 10's been a problem for a few years for the Blues, hasn't it?
For about a decade, yeah.
Yeah, so that real high quality 10 could make a real difference, even if you are playing someone like Rico at 12, who, to be fair, is being a fantasy player, and Rico's in my team, so I'm more than happy for him to be at 12. But for long-suffering Blues fans like yourself, probably not so much.
The Blues haven't had a decent fly half since Carlos Spencer, which is going back quite a long way now.
Sure is.
Ohio West, no, sorry, not up to it. They had Gareth Anscombe before, but that was in like his first season or first 2 seasons at the Blues before he got forced out. And before that, we were talking about various journeyman folks who replaced Carlos Spencer. So, it's been a very long time since the Blues had a decent number 10. And I think if we look at sides that have won Super Rugby, the Chiefs have done it with Aaron Cruden there. The Highlanders do it with Sopawanga. You've got the the Hurricanes doing it with Bowden Barrett. We've had the Crusaders do it with Richard Moanga. They've all had proper number 10s there who can control a game. And the Blues just have not had that one, I say, ever since Carter has left. So, yeah, not a big surprise. I think that's going to be part of also the Reds issue as well. It's good that they're giving Hamish Stewart a chance because we obviously know that Lance is leaving for Worcester at the end of the season. So Hamish Stewart's got to be the future, and yeah, give him this. It's a dead rubber as has been said in the live chat. So give him the game time, give him the experience before next season.
Yeah, look, I think that he's developing nicely, and he showed enough for Brad Thorne to see that he is the future and he's worth persevering with.
He is. I'm a bit surprised by the number 9 though. There was a number 9 who I thought had played that. I can't remember the name of the guy now who played for Brad Thorne and joined the NRC, who started at number 9 early in the season, who's gone missing. Who was a good kicker?
Tuttle,
yes, exactly. So I'm surprised not to see him in there, and whether they've already decided that Tuttle's not got what it takes at this level.
The starting 9 for the Reds tonight was very ordinary. He made a couple of really poor errors, actually.
Yep. So Sorobi. I'm a bit surprised that we've not heard or seen much more of Tuttle, because there were lots of people saying pre-season that he was that they were expecting big things from him. Just quickly, George Smith got himself and Kane Douglas both put in big shifts tackling wise. We heard George Smith's name quite a few times, but quite a few times that was because he was offside rather than necessarily getting over the ball. Unfortunately, so I think he gave up a few penalties tonight. Again, a player who is apparently heading to Bristol at the end of this season. So this is his last season, I think, probably ever in Australia. But yeah, got through a chunk of work for the old man.
They probably said that 10 years ago, mate. Never say never.
Never say never. Oh dear.
Yeah, so he turns 38 later this year. I actually played age group and Colts rugby with George, and he's always been a fantastic player and a good bloke.
Wow. So see what you could have been.
What happened?
It's cool. Any last points? I think we've covered off everything that I had down on my notes.
Considering where both teams are on the table, it is interesting to note that depending on what happens in the Waratahs Rebels game tonight, that the Reds can still have an impact on the Australian Conference because they play the Rebels next week. So not only will they be looking forward to next season, but good Queenslanders like Shane will tell you that the Reds would like nothing better than knocking the Tars out of finals contention. So look for a big effort from them next week.
Hang on, but the Reds are playing the Rebels next week. So if you want to lose,
yeah,
so,
correct.
Oh dear me, will they put up a full effort? and if they don't, could we even tell? So no, I'm sure the Reds will put up a good effort.
Hello to all the Reds fans out there.
Yes. Let's alienate a bunch of fans. See ya. Sorry guys. Anyway, Hugh, will you let people know where they can have a chat with you about rugby during the week?
Yep, on Twitter, my handle is HEF0909.
And obviously, I'm in Paul, go humble dog, DrivingMaul. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed it. If you're new here, do subscribe. And always have good rugby chats, so comments down below, or you can catch me at DrivingMaul on Twitter. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll be back tomorrow night for the Highlanders versus the Chiefs from Fiji. So it's going to be fun to see how both those sides cope in 30 degrees heat.